Hey everyone, it's Cece with One Green Pea. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite kinds of plants, the philodendron. Contrary to popular belief, a philodendron isn't just a single plant. A philodendron is a genus of plants. It belongs to the family Araceae, so aroid is the term that you hear probably more often. And there are over 480 species of philodendrons currently identified. So it's a really big group of plants. Philodendrons are really popular right now, and for good reason. They are generally very easy to grow and adaptable to a variety of different environments. Their foliage is absolutely beautiful. They come in upright and vining varieties. Now I have 3 different kinds. This one is the black cardinal, which is kind of cool, and I think it looks like rhubarb. This one is the jungle boogie, and I just can't get over the serrated edges on those leaves. And then this little cutie is the Brazil with the really soft, beautiful yellow variegation. There are a number of other philodendron that you've likely heard of that are pretty popular right now. The pink princess, which is extraordinarily expensive. The micans, the Xanadu, and the rugosum, which is actually at risk in the wild due to a loss of its habitat. So let's talk about care for these easy care plants. Now, understanding that the care tips are going to vary somewhat between species, but pretty broadly you can expect this. As far as light goes, they prefer medium to bright indirect light. This little guy down here is actually sitting in an east-facing window, so gets several hours of direct east-facing light and seems to do just fine. These guys are on the floor, and so they are flooded with east light, but light generally throughout the day in this room. Now, watering, you want to allow the soil to dry out. The fingertip test up to about your second knuckle in these bigger pots, first knuckle in the smaller pot. So they don't want to be sitting in water. They don't want to stay moist. You water thoroughly and then allow them to dry somewhat. And they do tolerate a little bit of neglect in terms of water. So they will let you know. They will get wilty looking if you fail to water them. And soil. So again, they are perfectly happy with my general soil mix. So you can either use just a bagged organic potting soil, or I've posted before and talked a lot about my mix, and I'll put the recipe in the notes below. But I just add perlite and orchid bark into my potting soil to allow it to have a little bit better drainage and aeration. Okay, how do we propagate philodendrons? Well, it's going to vary depending on the species. For the most part, a vining philodendron is very easy to propagate. What you're going to do is just take a stem cutting, and you'll see that there are lots of tiny little aerial roots and nodes right there. You're just going to cut right below there, place it in water, and your roots will grow from that spot. The easiest method for propagating an upright philodendron is going to be division. And if you get real close in here, you can see that there are places where you have actual separate plants coming off of the mother root. And so in the process of repotting, you could actually separate that right there, and you would be able to root your cutting in that way. The last subject I want to talk about today are lookalike philodendrons, or what I like to refer to as faux phils. The number one plant that gets confused with the philodendron is the pothos. For good reason. I mean, they look very similar. They're both vining plants, and the leaves are similarly shaped and similarly sized. I am going to help you with that eternal question of, is it a pothos or is it a philodendron? I'm going to bring you in close so you can see. The first dead giveaway for is it a pothos or a philodendron is the presence of caterpillars. Now, caterpillars are these fake leaves, basically. They are a sheath for a new leaf. So as a new leaf grows, the caterpillars basically just separate, and they stay on the plant until they wither and die. Let's see, here's a new leaf unfurling. You can see he has pretty sturdy caterpillars right there, and they're just going to stay until eventually they just wither and fall off. The pothos does not grow that way. In fact, a new leaf just comes right off of the stem, so just at the end of the stem. The second difference is in the shape of the petiole. Now, the petiole is where the leaf attaches to the stem. And you can see in the philodendron, the petiole is nice and rounded. Now, on the pothos, it's not rounded, it's actually quite angled. Difference number 2. Okay, the third major difference I think is kind of sweet. A mature philodendron leaf looks like a heart at the top, whereas a pothos has a similar shape but is a little bit more flat across. So now you know. Pothos, philodendron. There are 2 more plants that very commonly get confused with the philodendron species. The first is the Monstera deliciosa. The Monstera is not a philodendron. Now, it's easy to see why it might get confused. It shares many of the physical traits: aerial roots, dark green foliage, large leaves, but it's not. It's often confused with the plant, the split leaf philodendron. They look very similar, but they're not the same. The second plant is the Synapsis pictus. Now, this plant looks very similar to both a pothos and a philodendron. In fact, its common names are silver pothos and satin philodendron. I might have those backwards, but it doesn't matter. That's why we try to use Latin names as much as possible. It's not a philodendron, it's not a pothos. It is its own beautiful, wonderful, fabulous vining plant. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite genera of plants, the philodendron. I hope it cleared a few things up for you and maybe inspired you to go and find a new philodendron for your collection. If you like this video, a thumbs up is sure helpful to me, and I love when you subscribe to my channel or share it with others if you're already subscribed. Leave your questions in the comments down below. I love interacting with you in that way. And until next time, my planty friends, let's keep growing together a greener world.